Okay, so on religion, what is it and why do people get stuck on it? Religion is Santa Claus. If you can understand where I'm going with this. A lot of children get stuck on Santa Claus. Why do you think that is? As children, you're not encouraged to ask questions. That is why you get stuck. Not that you're dumb, you're not encouraged to ask questions. And what stops religion from asking questions? God. God demands that you don't ask questions. It's really simple. It's like your parents, it's like you got, let's say your cousin gets a new car. And you're like, how come she gets a new car and I don't? And then your parents go, don't ask questions. You stop asking questions. So it's not that people are dumb, it's just the generation is old. It's just old concepts. So I encourage people to ask questions all the time. So how do I come up with what I come up with is I ask big questions. So in religions they ask what's a soul and what's an afterlife. Those are good questions. I I was raised Roman Catholic. So I asked the same question, what's a soul? I got stuck. So when I get stuck, I don't just stay there. I go off to other um, um, like topics. I go to other places that would help me answer that question. And science is coming up with a lot of new theories. Religion doesn't. So it's coming with string theory, multiverse, and all these things. And I'm like, oh, so that's what a soul, the same question, that's what a soul it probably is. It's probably strings. I go ask help, basically. So I start off in the religion, yes, but I don't, but I get stuck and I ask for help. And where I ask help is I ask the science community. It's like help, it's like asking a TA or a professor on a question you're stuck on. And then they give you answers, or philosophy, they give you answers. So a lot of religious people, they just stay there. They don't ask for help. That's basically it. They just don't ask for help. And they're just reluctant on anyone helping them. What is the afterlife and what is the soul? That's all religion asks. What is an after? They're good questions. They're deep, good questions. However, religious people have gotten, you know, they're reluctant on anyone helping them. I don't know why. I don't know. I started off religious, but I asked for help, and then I find that religion is a starting point. Yes, it's a starting question, but that's not the end all of the answers. So you want to ask for help when you're stuck. A lot of people go to the Bible. However, the Bible doesn't ever, ever give you the answers. It's very abstract. It's like maybe it's this, maybe it's this. I don't know. Maybe it's this. That's how I see the Bible. Maybe. And they ask Jesus again. Maybe. Maybe. Maybe, maybe. That's that's how I see the Bible. He just says a lot of maybe. It could be. I don't know. Um. So what I would encourage for this generation is to ask a lot of questions and just be very careful when someone tells you not to ask questions. It looks like that person doesn't have any answers. So if God is all knowing, he would answer your questions. He should not ever say, don't ask questions. Understand? It's only a person who doesn't know, they would say, I don't know, so don't ask me. That's how I see God. They ask God all these questions. He's like, I don't know. Stop asking me. That's how I see God. So when he says don't ask questions, he's really saying don't ask me. I don't have the answers. Don't ask me questions. Go ask someone else. That's indirect indirect way of saying don't ask me. By him saying don't ask questions, he's saying don't ask me. I don't know. I don't have the answers. So I wouldn't feel dumb. I wouldn't feel dumb about it. I would go like, oh, I should have asked for help because you're failing the class. Religious people, they're basically failing at life. They're not asking for help. It's one question. It's like there's only two questions in that book. It's like in a math book, there's only two problems to solve. What is a soul and what is the afterlife? It's only two questions. And why are you not asking for help? That looks like a personal problem, not a Bible problem. That looks like a personal problem. You don't ask for help. You don't ever ask for help. So that's my whole approach on religion. It's just two questions: what's a soul and what's the afterlife? And I came to the conclusion the soul is probably a string from string theory, and the afterlife is just eternal multiverse life. That's my conclusion. I started off Catholic as well, but by asking questions, asking a lot of questions myself, and asking the science community, who gets a lot of answers, I've come to the conclusion that it's probably a string and it's probably eternal life in a multiverse eternal life. If I was religious or any failing student at life, I wouldn't feel dumb. I would just be like, bonehead, should have asked for help. I'll be more like that. Be nice to yourself, because when you're nice to yourself, you learn to be nice to others. If you're very hard on yourself, you tend to be hard on others. So don't be hard on yourself and just go like, ugh, bonehead, of course, I should have asked for help. Be more like that. Be nice to yourself. Be you want to aspire to greatness, yes, but don't be so hard on yourself that you can't breathe. Like dummy, dummy, dummy. Don't do that. Just be like, oh, I didn't think of that. I should have asked for help. Just yeah, so like that. Just be easier on yourself. But I don't like to interfere with so so with so so Earth is kind of like a quarantine place, and the question is, um, do they see it as a place that you're not supposed to go? Um, Remember, these are little kids. heaven is a little kid's answer. it's like it's like saying, why can't you go over to that jungle gym? Because it's the big kids jungle gym. Big kids meaning heaven. You can't go to heaven. Remember, these kids are very young. They'll just point at something and then they'll give it a name, and then that becomes the devil or Satan or heaven. And you can no longer go over there because they gave it a name. Um, so remember, these are just little kids giving little kid titles to things that most of the time aren't real. But I don't like to interfere with people studying. If they're studying religion and they're really trying hard at it and they don't want any help, I don't want to force them into like a professor, right? So let's say I was in art class. Art is one of the hardest majors to have because it's so abstract. My professors would leave me alone 90% of the time. So when I would get stuck on a painting, I would just stand there, just stare at it. And I had Dan Casser. I think he was a chair at some point, and he came back, and it was and a lot of times my professors would just be like, just leave the students. They'll figure it out. Of course, ask for help. They're like, do you need any help? Of course, they always like, do you need any help? And a lot of times I do ask questions because I've been thinking about it. Like, oh, how's my composition? Is the topic good for discussion? How is the color and things like that? Just the basic stuff. And then Dan would be they encourage us to say call them by their first name to be less formal. Is it to be less formal? Formal is really formal, right? I think formal is like really dressed up. So to be less formal, they encourage us to just call them by their first name. So that his wife Lucinda, a lot of students would just call them Dan and Lucinda. I was very proper. I just don't like calling them by their first. I do like I would now like Dan and Lucinda, just because it's more colleagues and more friend like. But at the time, I was very proper to know my place that they're higher ranking than me. I would always call them Professor Casser. It's both Professor Casser. Because it's to show them that I respect their rank and I need help. I'm not on the colleague level, even though they encourage that. In the art department, they always like we're colleagues because they're artists and we students are artists as well. They encourage us to see each other as colleagues. I do see it that way. I do listen to them, but I myself, through my eyes, I don't see it that way because I'm still a student and I'm still learning. So I tend to call them professor. But my friends would call them Dan and Lucinda. They're cooler than me. I'm like, no, I'm not that cool, man. I'm very proper. I'm very proper. But a lot of times they would come by and they would ask me like, "Do you have any questions?" Like, I would ask like, "How's the composition? Is the theme well? And is the color theme and is just the basic questions that I would have." So I do ask for help. I do ask for help, and they do come by and ask, "Do I need any help?" But then and then Dan and Lucinda would be like, okay, like the rest is up to you. Like if there's anything else, it's up to you. And I would tell them, I was like, I'm stuck on just like in religion, like I'm stuck on soul. I'm stuck on the afterlife. I would say it. Like, I'm stuck on the themes. I don't feel the themes are important enough or for a social change. My themes aren't important enough. And Dan and Lucinda's like, we can help you with the basic art stuff, but when it comes to themes, you have to be a genius. When it comes to themes, they're like, oh, we can't help you there. So they'll be like, we don't know. We can give you references and things like that, like Michelangelo and Da Vinci or the contemporary artists. They even have works of themselves. They'll be like, can you look at our works and see if you get any ideas? And I would look at it and I'm like, it just doesn't. That's not. That's not what I'm looking for. It helps. It helps. Like, yeah, it definitely does help to get answers, to get help. But it doesn't help what I was working on. I was working on like comics and pop art, popular culture. But I was young at the time. I didn't know what I was doing. But that was basically it. Just like, what is pop culture? Is what I was asking. I didn't know to ask that at the time. But that's basically what I was asking. What is pop culture? Like, what does it mean? It's kind of like religious people asking what is science. To scientists, they know what science is, but to religious people, it seems otherworldly. It's like, what is science? So for me, pop culture was that science, and I'm Catholic, and pop culture is science, and I'm like, what is pop culture? I hear it all the time in my art history class with Dr. Schleier, and I'm like, I don't get it. I don't know what I've had my friends like Chris Baum. He was in Sigma Chi. I wish I was more into Greek life. I would have definitely joined Sigma Chi with him because he was a good friend of mine, and he was in the art department with me. He was studying graphic design. But he was an A student, and he would ace tests. I wish I would have asked him for help. I was stuck on the doing it myself kind of thing, which is fine, but not in college. Because in college, they need you to keep up. When you want to learn on your own, it can't be on college time, meaning college classes and courses and homework. When it comes to those things, you have to ask for help. You have to ask for help. That's not the time to develop slowly. In school is not the time to develop slowly. It has to be on your own. When you're on your own. When you're in school, they need you to keep up. So I definitely should have asked Chris for help because he was understanding it. He was like, this is pop art, and the Renaissance is this time, contemporary art, Duchamp, all this, and he knew his stuff, and I can tell he knew his stuff because I would study at Sigma Chi this one night, and he would be talking with his friend, this girl. He would be talking to his friend while studying with me on our exam, and I'm like, how are you doing this? And um, and I would when his friend was talking, the girl was talking to me. I couldn't even look at her because I was so still trying to memorize what I need to memorize. So when she was talking to me, I was like, yeah, 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 while I'm looking at my book. So he was like making eye contact and things while studying. I'm like, man, he's such an A student. He's such an A student. But I can do that because I didn't understand. I didn't understand popular culture, popular art. I think Greek life is like popular culture, so I didn't understand it at the time. I just didn't understand it. So that was my question in the art department. What is popular culture? I would just stare at my large painting. I was just like, and I painted from the Fantastic Four, the Thing, with the potato eaters from Van Gogh. So the Thing was carrying potatoes, just looking back. It was just a random picture. It didn't mean anything. But the big question was, what is popular culture? What is comic books? Why are we as a society so fascinated with popular culture, like celebrityism, we're so fascinated by all these people. What does it mean? I don't know what it means. Even to this day, I still struggle a bit with what it means. I'm working on a lot of different things. That's why, but popular culture is the one thing where I was struggling on big time in college. I just didn't know what it means, and I was in no rush to make friends. Even though you should. That's the thing about college. They're like they expect you to learn fast. They expect you need to make friends. I had so many advisors. I had Allison from CIP. Like, no, you gotta be out there. You gotta be doing volunteer work. Like, I know you're struggling in class because I was struggling with my grades, and Allison would have to call me in. It's like, hey man, you're struggling with your grades. What's going on? And I remember lying to her. Like, I had so many friends, things like that, but it wasn't true. Um, but with me, I don't rush into making friends because I don't know what it means. I don't rush into anything where I don't know what it means. So having friends is that popular culture. I'm like, what is that? I'd rather sit there and go, what is that? Than go out there and make friends. But in college, they're like, no, you can't do that. I didn't know. I had no idea. I had no idea. In college, they're like, no, you can't do that. We in college, they're like, we brought you here for a reason. You have talents, you have these gifts, and you're supposed to share it. You're supposed to share it with your classmates and in your graduating class. I didn't know that. I was all keeping it to myself. I'm like, I don't know what popular culture. So it's okay. It's okay. It's just you're learning about, oh, why are kids shy and stuff. And I wasn't shy. I'll talk to anyone. But I was more sitting back going, what is that? Why do we feel the need to be social? So with colleges, they're like, you need to be social. I'm like, why? Not to be rude about it. I'm honestly questioning academically, like, why? Just like Jane Goodall would ask, why would a chimpanzee do that? I'm asking, like, why do we need to do that? Like, what's the difference from someone who is really social and someone who I know now? I'm like, oh no, you need to be social. I know now, but that's why they're like, no, we know better than you, and you need to be social, and you can learn about that later. But I was so in my head, I was like, but why? I throughout my life, I'm always asking why do I have to do this? Why do I have to be Catholic? Why can't I be a scientist? Um, why can't we talk to the multiverse? Why can't why? I'm always asking why before I do anything. So when I was raised Catholic, I was fine with it. I was fine with it. And then when science would bump in, I'm like, wait, why can't we adopt science? And then as I go on, like, why can't I adopt popular culture? Because my family, they're not so shy, but they're not as outgoing either. We're very question oriented family. We're just like, wait, why? Like, tell us why first, and then we'll do it. Like, we're not shy, my family. We're not shy, but we're just like, wait, why? We're always asking why. So, yeah, in college, you need to. They know, they're like, yeah, you gotta be social, you gotta be things like that, and you gotta keep up in class. This is not the time to ask why. This is the time to keep up. You'll ask why later on in your life because these kids learn so rapidly that you get left behind. Um, yeah, so that was my college experience. Um, oh man. So in high school, I wasn't a good student. I was still struggling on pop culture. I'm like, why do I need to make friends? I knew I was smart, so I'm like, I don't need to be friends with people who are not as smart as me. So I was always asking why. Why do I need to be social? Even though I had friends. But in high school, I wasn't a good student because I'm like, why do I need education? Because I was smarter than the education system. I can always teach myself. That's what my mom taught me. Growing up, my mom would always have us over summer break teaching ourselves. So when I look at the education system, I'm like, I'm way smarter than that. I'm not even gonna attempt it because I have other questions. I have questions of like, why are humans so social? Why are we social animals and things like that? I had bigger questions, so I wasn't interested in, you know, what's the hypotenuse in geometry. You know, these are easy questions. I'm like, I'm not interested in those. So when all my friends went to college, I'm like, oh man, I'm behind. I'm like, oh man, I completely forgot. I slept in. I was like, I totally slept in. I forgot. I forgot we had to go to college. When all my friends were going to college, and so I'm scrambling to go to art school because I was interested in art. I'm like, dang it, man! I slept in. I forgot you're supposed to go to college. I had no idea you're supposed to go to college. Honestly, I had teachers of ask in like papers, at the bottom, are you gonna go to college, things like that. And in my family, we were first generation going to college, so we didn't talk about it. So when all my friends were going to college, my friend Alex Raynon and all his friends, and I knew his friends, they were all going to college. I'm like, oh man, I'm behind. I forgot. So I kind of just followed my friend Alex into Pacific, because it's close by, and my dad was always talking about how, when am I gonna see you? My dad passed away from cancer when I was a sophomore in high school, and when we were young, we would always drive by UOP Pacific, and he would always ask like, when am I gonna see you guys, guys and girls in Pacific one day? And I'm all like, man, I ain't smart enough for that. I was just joking around. But then when it came time to it, I'm smart enough to be there. Um, I still think Pacific is a high class institution, and I'm proud to be there. I'm proud to be an alum. I feel fortunate to even get in, honestly, because I'm such a bad student. I was such a bad kid. I forgot about science. No one told me about college. I mean, science, college. No one told me about college. And so I went one year at Delta Community College here, and I really just, focused in. And I was on the dean's list for having good grades. I think it's the top 1.5% of that class. I think 2006. So I was the top 1.5%. I probably had a few B's in there. From it's always the creative class. It's probably like English and like creative writing, English, and I did pretty strongly in math. Um, and I think it might have been history because you have to write a lot of essays in history. So the creative writing always got me. I'm like, dang it, not as creative as I thought in those areas. And then I transferred in one year when it was a 2 year program. So I knew I was smart enough to get in, and then I ended up getting in at Pacific. So 1 year at a community college, and then 3 years at a 4 year university. And I enjoyed myself. I had a good I had a good college experience. I was in the art department a lot. I was really um, ever since community college, I was dialed in. I wasn't interested in making friends or anything. Even though I worked on the experience because they encourage you, like, no, you need the whole experience and you live on campus and you need the whole experience, even though it's expensive. But you need the whole college experience. Live away from your parents. Don't have anyone telling you how to live and just, go at it on your own. And Um, so I did that, yes, but in my mind, I'm always like focused on my work. I've been that way my whole life. When I was a kid, that's why I wasn't interested in school, because you should be. Again, remember, school is good for you, but this is my story. I wasn't interested in school because I just felt better than school. I felt like I can do better than school. And then when community college came around, I was just focused in. So when I hit the 3 year, I was so focused. I didn't care if I had friends or not. I didn't care like, oh, on Facebook you have like 200 friends, like you barely have 50 friends. I didn't care about that stuff. Even though I worked at it, I wasn't good at it. I worked at it. I didn't really care because that's not my focus. My focus was on my art. I wanted to really figure out what is art. Um, because it's such a hard major. A lot of engineering, you know what you're gonna do, right? Business, you know what you're gonna do. Art, even though like you can go into film, video games, there's a lot of places for art, but what is art? It's so abstract. It's such a hard question. It's like, what is the soul? What's the afterlife? I see art like as the physics major. It's such a hard major. A lot of people speak lightly on art. I don't. I don't at all. Cause just I knew that, or I kind of had a sense of that, but especially going into college and taking art classes and the themes of art in those classes. Nah, I'm a bright kid. Those are not easy. That's why when my friend Chris Baum was doing so well, I'm like, how? Like how? Because these are hard questions. What is contemporary art? Um, these are so hard. These are physics questions. What is the Big Bang? Is there a God? These are hard questions, and and I tend to take my time on those questions. So I see art as the physics, as 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 high as physics, because they ask so many tough questions, like what is art, what is line quality, what is color theory, all these very hard questions. Biology, right? What's a cell? Well, that's the origin, and you know where you're gonna go with it. But when you're asking abstract questions, like in physics asks very abstract questions. What is God? What is the multiverse? Things like that. Well, art asks the same questions, so it should be on the same playing field. It should be considered on the same playing field. How I feel. So I struggled with it. Just like in college, a lot of kids, like when they take biology, there's like a biology class that everyone takes. And they're like, I got a C. And they're like, hey man, if you get a C, you're good. Art is the same way. And I know kids who take physics are probably the same way. We're like, man, some of these classes you're hoping for a C, and I barely passed mine. I had to retake so many. Um, I don't know about the retake classes, but I know I barely got by on a lot of classes because they were asking so many hard questions that I was not ready for. I'm ready for like what's the hypotenuse and what, like I can do that, right? Because you're looking at it and all you have to do is figure it out. But what is contemporary art, and what is pop art? What is popular culture? Apply that into the real world. It's like business. It's like business. Reading trends in the real world. Like I didn't know we were gonna do real life exploration. I thought it was just gonna be in a math book and that's it. But it's like, no, what is pop art and then what is popular culture? I'm 19 years old, man. You can't ask me those questions. I don't know. Like 21 years old, I'm like, nah, man. I still don't know. Those are hard questions. So I had to apply pop art, pop culture into real culture. What is celebrityism? It's hard, man. It's hard. So I struggled in fine art, and I think it was studio art, but it's fine art. It's a BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, and they call it studio art because you're in studio as well. It's not just theory. You're painting, studio art, but it's called Bachelor of Fine Arts. It's the highest. There's Bachelor of Arts and then there's Bachelor of Fine Arts. Dan Casser encouraged me. I think I came in as Bachelor of Arts, and he's like, "No, you should take Bachelor of Fine Arts. It's like 12 more credits or something, like 6 more classes or something like that." Freaking Dan, man. You got me struggling. I mean, I can handle it. I can handle 12 more classes, but 12 more classes of physics, art? Man, I didn't know what I was getting into. I was doing summer school. I was doing so many because I didn't know I was going to struggle that much in I thought all classes were equal. They're not. These art classes are hard, man. Because not only do I not want to copy what's been done, I have to create what hasn't never been created. In my estimation, because I can definitely create something that's been created and get an easy A. But that's just not my mindset, and no art student's mindset. They come in there, it's like a Harvard student. They come in there, they want to create something, invent something new. You don't ever tell an art student, "Oh, just create something that's been done." They don't ever like that. Being in the art department is like being in an Ivy League college. They hate when you say just copy something. They hate it. They're like, "No, why would we ever do that?" So the art department is some of the hardest working students. I've been see when even dentistry students who take ceramics and stuff come over, like they have to be pushed harder than they've ever been pushed to invent something that hasn't been invented yet. So I see it as an Ivy League level, taking an art major. So yeah, that's my college experience. It was hard, man. I'm still Man, I'm still working on that art. Science is easy. Science, multiverse, string theory. Those are just numbers. Those are easy. But I'm still struggling with art and pop art and popular culture. So that's what I'm still working on. I still don't get. It's like, why am I wearing my hoodie this way? Why is it cool? Why is it? I don't know, man. I don't know. Those are hard questions. Those are hard questions. But yeah, that's what I'm working on, and yeah, that was my college experience. It was fun. It was fun. It was hard. I see it like an Ivy League, man. It was hard, but yeah.